breaking the seal. All this and more on This Week in Retro.
High-resolution color graphics.
This land of high technology.
The revolution in technology that made the information age possible.
Those kids are not afraid of computers.
Cunning stunt bonus. Sealed or unsealed? That is the question.
And it's not just the Super Bowl that Janet Jackson crashes with an accidental slip.
All this and more coming up on today's show.
Up-to-date news for out-of-date tech.
Gentlemen, we're at show number 90. Let the countdown begin. 10 more shows till the big 100. Can you believe it?
That's amazing.
I know. There's something special happening, isn't there?
There is. I mean, Chris, you've been here for at least 10 of them. And then Dave, you've been here for
4.
I can't even remember
5.
what episode you guys began on.
I thought you were going to say at least 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, seriously though. I mean, it's incredible to think that we started a podcast all those years ago now. It's gone so quickly. And there's always something new and fresh to talk about every week. I think I enjoy it more and more every week as we've relaxed into it together.
Yeah, we've got a flow. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a great audience submitting stories over on the subreddit. I'm really enjoying it. So we'll have to think of something special to do for the 100th show. If you've got any suggestions.
Dancing girls.
Dan, not you. I was talking to the audience, Chris. I know what you're going to come up with. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we need to do like a bit of question and answer. I don't know. Any suggestions, audience? What would you like to see from us for a special 100th show? Let us know. High score challenge, Q&A. I don't know. We can throw all sorts in there. This weekend, I've been over to Belfast for a family wedding. It was a real in and out job. Okay, so I heard this phrase when the Olympics were on, which I thought hit all of the right syllables for a Belfast accent, and I'm terrible at accents, so this isn't going to work. Okay. We have the world's greatest curling facilities.
That's fantastic.
We have the world's greatest curling facilities.
Not bad. I know, it just hit the world curling. Facilities. I think it just hits all the right things.
I do like the accent over there.
Yeah. No, it's a lovely accent. And also I've got a large Scottish contingent in my family, so it's a nice mixture of nice sing-songy accents. You know, nice. I love those accents.
Does your accent change when you're drunk, Neil?
Only if I'm speaking to people from the West Country.
Yeah.
Then it can, then I can slip into it a little bit. It's not like I make an effort to hide an accent. I just kind of slip into it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyway, Chris, how's your week been?
Yeah, it's not been too bad. Oh, hang on. I'm just trying to think when we go to air. Sorry, I've just got to quickly change my calendar because I'm in August.
Oh, you're changing your RMC calendar.
I'm changing my RMC calendar over to September.
Good point.
By the time this airs, it'll be September, won't it?
This is totally not planned whatsoever, but just seeing you turn your calendar there, there is going to be a new RMC calendar for this year, RMC charity calendar. I mean, historically, we've raised £3,000, £4,000 and I think £5,000 for charity with those calendars. So it's a really, really great thing. So pleased to be doing it again this year with the help of One Click Print, who very kindly do all the hard work of producing the calendar for free. And then I put the calendar together with photos submitted from viewers. So I'll put out the call for photos soon. I think the topic this year, it might change, but I think it's just going to be joysticks. I just want some sexy pictures of joysticks or joypads. I think that's something a lot of people can participate in, because if you make the topic too complex, it excludes a lot of people. So I think just joysticks,
Nice.
Yeah.
I've got a nice Australian joystick. I'll take a photo. Hang on, that sounds wrong. Anyway, let's move on. I have got an idea for that, so I might put a submission in. That'll be my first.
Yeah. Dave's just rattling about. Sorry, what have you got there, Dave?
Dave's got apart from annoying Duncan, I've got this force feedback wingman that's floppy, but as soon as you give it power, it goes solid in your hand.
I
it's really
remember
weird.
them. The Logitech Wingman. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah.
So many joysticks. So many big joysticks.
X-Wing Alliance, I think, gives you...
Oh, does it? Yeah, cool.
Or you can play it with a mouse.
Apparently you can play it with a mouse. Anyway, glancing across at September, my wife's birthday's in September. I can't remember exactly which date. But what I do remember is the 19th is Talk Like a Pirate Day. Do you guys celebrate that at all?
I don't celebrate it, but I can talk like a pirate for almost a whole sentence before I end up in Northern Ireland.
Usually I end up in
shiver me
Somerset.
timbers. Jack
But interestingly, that's the date that they've chosen to drop Return to Monkey Island, which is quite a cool idea.
Oh, okay.
So,
What a coincidence.
I know. I might have to actually play a point-and-click adventure, lads. I don't know. While drinking rum. I think that'd be a perfect way to celebrate that.
So that's September the 19th. I've noticed that's coming out on the Switch. And obviously it'll be a digital download on Steam or wherever for the PC. I'm just holding out there because people are pre-ordering this for the Switch. But I'm just holding on to see, will there be a physical big box release for the PC? Got to be.
With nice stuff in it.
Yeah.
Interesting you raised that point, actually, Neil, because I was taking a look on some of the Facebook groups this week, and I noticed an interesting contrast between a couple of groups. So the Amiga Facebook group is just ongoing criticism that I'm not going to go into, but I just find
that's
that
Amiga
interesting.
people for you.
That's Amiga people for you. Shut up.
Nice
but it was a really nice change to see in the PC collectors group. There was nothing but excitement for the game, and not only for the game dropping, but for the prospect of a physical release. So yeah, hopefully there will be, because it'll be a really cool thing to pick up.
I wonder why that is, because perhaps it's with the Amiga crowd, we only got Monkey Island 1 and 2, but with the PC crowd, the series continued to evolve and the art style evolved through the 90s, and just LucasArts games in general evolved with the times through the 90s into that 3D era. So
Are Amiga fans stuck in the past?
Well, I wouldn't like to say, Dave.
I don't.
You've got two here. You've got two here in me and Chris.
Yeah,
no matter how much you try to rib us.
I'm totally joking. I'm just going for a reaction.
Well, they're definitely not, because they're obsessed with getting their Amigas running like modern PCs, throwing faster and faster accelerators in them. So they're certainly not stuck in.
Yeah, so they can run Doom.
So they can run Doom finally. I do find
something
that funny.
else I would point out is, in the world of big box games, LucasArts had fantastic art and fantastic games, but actually the quality of their big boxes was sometimes quite low. It was sometimes quite flimsy cardboard sleeves.
Yeah.
Things like Grim Fandango, you always see a crushed box on eBay with that one. So they weren't actually that high quality boxes.
No, and there wasn't I've mentioned this before, but for me, the big box game starts when you lift the box off the shelf, when you start to look and you open it up, you see the manual, you see the stuff inside, the feelies, the browsies and so on. But with LucasArts games, one of the selling points there was when the game started, that's when you got the intro, when you got the cutscene at the start and so on. And it really did set the scene and it helped the games work. But it doesn't help the big box experience, because no one really thinks much about. They talk about the pirate, the pirate matching thing. The
Dial-up pirate.
That's the word. But the big box experience for LucasArts isn't the same as what it is with Infocom games or even the LucasArts Star Wars games.
The weight of a LucasArts big box game was often helped by a large number of floppy disks. But when you moved into the CD-ROM era, you literally got a CD in a jewel case and a sort of a leaflet.
Well, even
that was it.
Even the game, The Dig. The Dig is a fantastic game. Steven Spielberg involved in it. We've mentioned it before. But The Dig, inside the box, there is an A5 size technical supplement, how to run the game, and a jewel box, and the manual for the game is inside the jewel box, and that's a real cheap. That's a real cheap move from them. There, it's not. It doesn't help you enjoy the game through the box. There's not much point to the box, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm going to remain optimistic for a big box Monkey Island release with some good feelies. I mean, if they're going to do it, they're going to charge a premium for it, because they know there will be collectors out there wanting it. So hopefully we get like a map or, some nice novel or novella or something in there. Who knows? But we just have to wait and see. Yeah.
Nice.
Sorry, Chris, we've totally crashed your chat about your week.
That's
with,
all on
some
topic.
LucasArts
That's
chat.
all on topic.
Dave, how have you been?
I've been ill, and I'm still ill.
Oh, no.
I'm a bit discombobulated, so if I'm incoherent, if I'm more incoherent than usual, then my apologies. I've got some kind of chest infection, throat infection type flu-y thing. I don't know.
Nasty.
It's not the dreaded word, but it's something similar.
Okay. Big bottle of Lucasade and some video games prescribed to you for the week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And have you picked up a sponsor there? Can I see you're wearing a Retro Rewind t-shirt? How much are they paying you for that, Dave?
Absolutely nothing. The reason why I'm wearing it is that Frank is a really nice guy, and when I donated money to the Amigos charity stream, he matched it, and then afterwards he asked for my details and sent me a t-shirt. So I thought,
that's nice.
one good turn deserves another, so maybe I'll wear his t-shirt and tell people
There you go.
that Retro Rewind in Canada are nice people and deserve your business.
That's cool.
There you go. Great. Should we get into this week's stories then?
Let's do it.
One more thing before we get there. There's a
go
story that we didn't pick this week. As everyone knows, you submit a story to the subreddit and people click the little upvote button to determine which stories we choose to pick and talk about. And the top story this week we didn't pick and we're not discussing much, and it's the naked retro gaming in Cambridge. So at the Centre for Computing History in Cambridge, they're having an evening of naked retro gaming. I thought I should mention it at least because we're not talking about it, where naturists can go and enjoy it without clothes.
I'm just going to
not my kind of thing, but no judgment.
I worry that if we covered that story, there would be too many jokes about joystick waggling and and too many cliches. Yeah. We wouldn't get through it. But if that's your thing, I think it's £19.99 for a ticket. Look up the Naturist Retro Gaming event at Cambridge Centre for Computing History. That's it. Okay, into this week's stories then. Hold on to your helmets, everyone, because Carmageddon is being reverse engineered as Project Death Race, an attempt to convert 1997's gory racer from assembly code into C so that it might be easily ported to modern systems. And who knows, maybe Carmageddon can become the new Doom, and we'll all be saying, will it run Carmageddon? That'll give those Amiga fans something to talk about. Can we get Carmageddon running? The project is at a very specific 69% complete, according to the official Twitter account, which is at deathrace_labs, and that's spelled DETH race. So the A is missing in Death Race. And a very playable looking version of it has shown up on their social media feed. I think it's running on an Apple Mac on the version that they show. So in my eyes, first glance at this, it looks to be using software rendering for all of the graphics, as the original did. But of course, it's all being shared on GitHub, so I'm sure we'll see hardware-accelerated 3D assistance added before long, just as the original had the 3DFX patch added to it not long after it came out. Now, I'm going to be watching this one very closely personally because it was an important game in my history of gaming and my life of gaming. I completed it multiple times. I was in total awe of the game, especially when that 3DFX patch came out. It was perhaps the first time I enjoyed completely open world racing combined with physics and a kind of a weight to the cars that just felt right. I mean, I know we were verging on cartoon with the designs of many of these cars, but each of them had their own characteristics and weight and feeling to them that felt right. Not to mention the destructible nature of the cars, and everything about it felt like a next-gen game. It really did feel like my PC gaming was catching up, if not overtaking, the current generation of consoles. So I guess it would have been the PlayStation at the time. PlayStation came out, made me think, why have I spent so much on a graphics card when this, £299 console can do this all in one? And then the PC catches up and starts to overtake. Yeah, and that's why I like to jump on any hint of a modern recreation of the game. It wasn't so many years ago that this did actually appear in the Android store. It might have been iOS as well, but I had an Android phone at the time. Carmageddon was playable on your phone, so it has been ported, but perhaps it was just an emulation layer in that instance. I'm not sure. What I do remember about it was that my phone would run red hot when I was playing it, and it would just destroy the battery life. So I couldn't play it for very long unless I was plugged in. But yeah, I mean, chaps, before we talk more about this, what are your memories of the franchise? Were you fans of it?
I'm gonna draw back. I'm gonna peel back the curtain for the listeners. In the show notes, somebody's cheekily put under my name, "I've never played it," because that's.
And they've also supplied a line from me afterwards.
Yes. However, I did indeed play the heck out of Carmageddon. Absolutely loved the franchise. Played TDR as well. Played the N64 version, which I was bitterly disappointed by. But the PC version, it was one of the games that put me on an upgrade path. I had what I thought was a fantastic P100 at the time, got Carmageddon. Suddenly my PC was totally inadequate. So then I ended up buying a P200 MMX chip, realized I needed an entirely new motherboard. So replaced all the guts out of my PC. It became a P200 MMX. Still didn't really play it very well. And as you've already alluded to there, Neil, it wasn't really until they added 3DFX support that you could really get the most out of the game, because it really did, use every last resource that your PC had. But it was just so cool. It felt, looking back at the maps now, they weren't that big, but at the time they just seemed immense, and it was just so free roaming and so many ways to complete each race, in terms of, killing all your opponents, which, let's face it, that's the only one we ever did. Or you could, complete all the laps and win the race in the traditional way. But yeah, just fantastic franchise.
Even though the maps weren't that big, in their scale, they also had multi-dimensions in that they had height as well. You could jump into parking lots or on roofs, and there were lots of different ways to explore the map, and lots of hidden bonuses to be found in all of these areas too. Yeah,
totally. And sometimes there'd be several races that were actually in the same arena, for want of a better word, because the ramps would go in a different direction, so you'd end up on the roofs and that kind of thing. And just I completed the first one. I think my funniest story about Carmageddon is I bought a steering wheel and pedal set for my PC at the time, and it was actually my wife. Yes, a steering wheel, and it was actually my wife that broke it playing Carmageddon, because she loved the heck out of it as well. Absolutely loved it. And one of the reasons why, talking about modern, I don't know if you guys have played Carmageddon Max Damage.
I haven't played it. I've seen it.
Yeah, so this is the PS4 version. It didn't look too good to me. It looked as if no soul to me. It didn't look as if it had the same bite. Oh, no, it has all the soul. I absolutely love the heck out of this. I actually think this is really good. I think it's the very first race, harks back to the first track on the original Carmageddon. But what they seem to have done is taken the best bits of the original Carmageddon, and then some of the bits of the games that followed, like the weapons that you pick up, that like the spring that shoots out and kills the pedestrians, that kind of thing. Some of that I didn't particularly like, but they seem to work well in this rendition, and it has the punch. Some of the later versions didn't really have the impact when you drive into other cars. They seem to be missing that sort of drama that the original had. It's back in this. So yeah, Carmageddon Max Damage was what I was holding up for the listeners. That's the PS4 version, but I think it's available on PC as well.
Yeah. How about you, Dave? Any good Carmageddon memories?
It's ridiculous fun. The game is ridiculously fun. The Fear Factor music hammering out, that's the industrial heavy metal music hammering out, the screams, the sounds, the iconic image of Neil behind the wheel with his big evil grin on his face. Multiple ways to complete the levels. You can kill all pedestrians as an alternative to the ones mentioned. And there's also the controversy that I'm sure that they were secretly delighted about. It was initially banned, and they had to replace the pedestrians with zombies. The massively over-the-top violence, though, was fantastic. It was, I don't know if there was some kind of backlash against Puritan values in the mid to late 90s. But yeah, I absolutely loved Carmageddon. It was so well done, and it was fun.
Yeah.
There was a desperate, well, not desperate, but there was a very obvious attempt by many game makers, Sony leading the charge, to show that gaming was more grown up and tackle more, I don't want to say adult themes, because I don't know that trying to, jump off a multi-story car park onto a Zimmer frame using grandma is an adult theme. It's as childish as it comes. But yeah, Dave, sorry, you wanted to jump in.
I was going to say that you used the word grown up, and it's weird. It meant grown up as in what a 12-year-old thought grown up was, rather than what a grown up thought grown up was. Yeah, electricity
shooting out the car at all the pedestrians around you, springs like Chris mentioned earlier. What were some of the other stupid power-ups? There were some mad ones, weren't there?
There were some that
you could have jelly suspension, which threw all over the place.
Turbos.
Yeah, there were so many cool add-ons with that. And not only the add-ons, just ways of discovering through the kind of sandbox nature of the game, things you could do, power slides, fishtailing in and just catching a pedestrian as you go around a corner and all the rest of us. I don't know if that's a reflection on me or the game. I don't know. But yeah, Carmageddon 1, played to death, completed multiple times, absolutely loved it. You mentioned that the 3DFX patch is essential, Chris. Actually, if you go back and play it with a powerful enough processor now, it is very playable in software mode. It's just that the 3DFX patch, smooths everything out, just makes everything look beautiful. And then we had Carmageddon 2, which was 1998. A year later, that came out. More of the same, more polygons, more cars, more tracks, and all the rest of it. It was a nice improvement on the original. But as I've mentioned in previous shows, as so often happens with me, I kind of lose interest in franchises as they go on and on. Yeah, Chris?
Iron Maiden soundtrack, I believe, wasn't it? Ink Apocalypse?
Was there? Nice.
I think I'm right in saying that. Yeah.
And then, I think I really got my fix by the end of Carmageddon 2. I was moving on to things like Midtown Madness. No violence at all whatsoever, but it took the graphics up a notch again, a slightly bigger city. That was a fun game. And the Formula One games, there seemed to be this great void in the 90s from when Jeff Crammond's Formula One kind of came to an end. And then we got a new Formula One game that was worth playing. So as soon as that came out, who was it? I think it was Psygnosis who published it. Was it Creation? There's a software house with a pumpkin as a logo. Do you remember those guys? And I think they went on to go and do Project Gotham. No. Okay. I might be talking absolute nonsense. Anyway, they did kind of the first F1 game that had, like, you had to have a 3DFX card to play it. You couldn't play it without. There was no software rendering. And that was on the PlayStation as well. And it had your man Walker, the commentator, on there shouting as you drove. Murray, that's the man. So I started getting into those games. I really liked them. Bizarre Creations. Bizarre. That was the name of the publishing house. So I started getting into that, and then you had the Carmageddon TDR, which I didn't go anywhere near. Chris, you said you played that. Was that good? I
did play that. Yeah, didn't enjoy it as much as the original, basically. But TDR, Total Death Rally, I think it was. But Carmageddon was originally meant to be called Death Race after the film, the 1970s film. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why this project has taken on the name Death Race. I think the name was still used in some of the file names or something like that in the version that was released. And then 2016, Max Damage, which you talked about. Now, on Steam, it has mostly positive reviews. There are some people citing that it's good fun, but it's a little bit short compared to the original.
Short's good. I like short games now.
Yeah, so maybe I should give that a go. 2016... I play enough retro games not to play a 2016 game and go, oh, that looks dated. It will look thoroughly modern to me. So I'll give it a go. But yeah, maybe I just don't like to spoil the memories I have of that first game, which I felt was so perfect. I don't know. But I am super excited for this project that they're working on, because once they open it up, well, they've already opened it up. It's on GitHub. But as they complete it, people will look into that, and they, as I say, they'll add 3D acceleration. They might add VR support. They might add ray tracing. They could do anything. A track editor, a car editor. It will be completely open for any platform, for anyone to do whatever they want with, if they have the skill. We could see things like the fog. Do you remember the fog? Constantly there.
Yes.
You could, no matter how high you set the draw distance, that fog was there. So we can lift that. We can see the city in all its glory. I just have a really good feeling about this one. I think there's enough talented people out there and enough love for this game. And when those things come together, something really special can happen. So good luck to the team who are working on it. I know they're at 69%. You always say that last 10% is the hardest. So, we'll see. No pressure on them to get over the line. Just hopefully they'll get it done right. And what we see so far looks absolutely fantastic. So they're well on the right track for this. Check out the project using the links in the show note, which Duncan, I hope, will kindly put there for you to click on, and we will bring you further updates.
Okay, there's a side topic that comes up from time to time, and we've always skirted around the edges of it. And, well, it's time to really open it up and unwrap it. Or maybe not. We'll see. The side topic I'm thinking of is the question, should sealed or even new old stock collectibles ever be opened? I personally have a strong view on this, and I'm sure you guys have as well. But the story in question is a bit of a curveball that may, in fact, change our minds. Before we get into the story, have you guys purchased any sealed items? And if yes, do you keep them sealed or do you open them? And what's the logic behind your actions?
Oh, it's a very open-ended question. I think it's very dependent on what the object is. So some examples I can give you is an Enterprise 64 computer. There's this guy on Egypt who just seems to have a warehouse full of Enterprise 64s, and he constantly drips them onto eBay. So I got a new old stock Enterprise 64. Did open that. So my reasoning behind that was, A, this guy seems to have a lot. There's a lot out there, so it's not particularly a rare example. But when it comes to systems, they're full of polystyrene filler. They've got cables with plastics that react over time. And, if the power cable is laying across the system, the plastic from the cable will start melting into the plastic of the system. So there's damage. There's going to be damage going on. So it's good to get that out in the air and stretch the cable out and get it away from everything. So in that instance, I did open it. Another example, which I think I have in the storeroom, is a sealed copy of Jet Set Willy. It's a cassette tape. Dave, you wanted to jump in there. Go on.
Yeah, I've opened up one of those for an RMC live stream submission. I had a Jet Set Willy seal and opened up for that.
Oh, Jet Set Willy. Now, I haven't opened this one, and the reason I haven't is because as I was told by many people when I started shrink wrapping all of the cassette games to put in the fake recreated shop, cassette games weren't really shrink wrapped back in the day. There were one or two examples, but generally the tape was kept behind the counter. You could pick up the case, you go to the shopkeeper, they'd put the tape in. Now, the reason I shrink wrapped them was so that people could pick them up without getting finger gravy all over them, and this could be a hands-on museum. That was the thinking behind it. But in the case of Jet Set Willy, Software Projects did do one that was shrink wrapped, and the seal goes all the way around the tape with the word Software Projects. So, you know this is legit. This is how it was. This is brand new. Nobody's ever opened this. It's not a rare game. I don't know. I just can't bring myself to peel that seal. I just like that. And I do. I have another copy of Jet Set Willy, which is opened. So I've got an open one. Do I need to open that one?
No.
That's fair enough.
No.
That's fair enough.
So I think that's a nice example. And then joysticks. I seem to have loads and loads of box joysticks, many of which are sealed. Again, there is the question of, are the cables causing damage? I don't know. Some I've opened, some I haven't. I'm not too precious about joysticks. I tend to open them when I need one to use.
Yeah, it's interesting that you should mention joysticks, because I think I've only bought a couple of new old stock things, and I didn't buy them because they were new old stock. They just happened to be there at a good price. And the main one was this Quick Shot Super Warrior that I'm holding up here for the viewers. And this is clearly now not still shrink wrapped or anything. The plastic that was surrounding it clearly was the original, because it actually became quite brittle, quite hard compared to like a re-shrink wrap job. And so I did open this because I bought it to use it. And funnily enough, there wasn't any cable damage, but it didn't fully work, even though it had been sitting there unused. The throttle wheel on the side of the joystick wasn't actually working until I took the joystick apart and basically hit it with some compressed air to clear out the things.
I do have one of those that turned up heavily used. It's got like a rubberized grip, and that was just full of dirt, so I had to get at that with a toothbrush. It's got the throttle. Got to say, Chris, it's a bloody awful joystick.
Yeah, but it was the first. Well, it wasn't it was the second joystick I got for my PC, so I had to rebuy one. And it was the first, in inverted commas, decent joystick. And do you know what? I've got photos of my setup from about about 20 years. No, not 20 years. What am I talking about? About 10 years after I bought that joystick, and it still features when I was having a Pentium, my P2. Pentium 200 MMX. It was still in use for that, and the machine that came after it as well. It features in all the photos, so it was still working, still going. But yeah, not the best.
Right
joystick.
up until the point. Right up until the point that Windows pulled support for the game cards and 15-pin joysticks.
Yeah, that's
and
pretty
then all our
much
joysticks became useless.
Yeah. The only other thing I've got, and it's been put away for Christmas because I'm not allowed to touch it until then because it'll be a Christmas present, but I've got an unopened version of Checkered Flag for the Atari Jaguar. Will I open it? Well, absolutely I will. So the box isn't sealed, but inside the box, the bag still has the original seal across the bag. I'm definitely going to open it. I bought it to play it. And the only other thing I can think of, there was a couple of other boring things, but things like, new old stock. These are double density discs I'm holding up, completely sealed, completely factory sealed. Would I open those? Double density discs are quite hard to get hold of. Absolutely, I have. The only reason I haven't opened that one is because I've started on this box. So once I get through this box, then I'll open the next. I've bought this stuff to use it. So yeah, I don't know. That's my take on it. And the other interesting thing about sealed stuff is who sealed these things? Because most of the shops that I was aware of, like you've alluded to, Neil, it wasn't sealed. It wasn't shrink wrapped. I actually worked in game for a bit, and the stuff would come in shrink wrapped. The first thing we do when we took new stock is open all the shrink wrap, put that in the bin, take the guts out, put that behind lock and key, behind the counter, and then re-shrink wrap. We had a shrink wrap machine in the back. We'd re-shrink wrap the box so that, again, you'd keep the fingerprints off, and that is what you would see on the shelf. So when somebody bought the game, guess what? The shrink wrap came off again so that we could stuff the guts back inside and give it to the paying customer. So I don't know where these factory sealed games are even coming from. It's quite an interesting thing to think about. Dave, what's your take on it?
I'm yet to be convinced that all of the factory sealed games on eBay are factory sealed. They could have been resealed by shops. I don't know. Maybe some games didn't even arrive in sealed. So I'm dubious about that. My opinion is 100% games are meant to be opened. Wait until you're ready to play it, of course, but then open it up. If you don't open it up, if you don't open the sealed game, it may as well have some cardboard inside, and that's all. So I don't pay extra for sealed games, but I do have quite a few. So I grabbed a couple here. Here's this is Total Eclipse, which is the Amstrad disc version with Total Eclipse 1 and 2 as a bonus on it. Sealed. It's a Freescape game, which is the 3D engine that came out for the Amstrad CPC and then ported everywhere else. 1 frame a second, 2 frames a second, but it was great back in the day because you didn't get 3D. And I've also got here's Betrayal in Antara, which is a Sierra game, a sequel to Betrayal in Crondor, sort of. Again, I've not got around to playing it yet, so it's still sealed. But when it's time to open it up, I will do. I'm not a fan of sealed games and keeping them sealed. I did notice something when I bought Thimbleweed Park, which I'm now holding up here. I need to make sure I don't show the code. Thimbleweed Park on the side as a sticker outside of the sealed box has the code you would put into GOG.com. So it's designed so that it stays sealed. You buy the game, you type the code in, and you never need to break the seal to play the game, which to me, I don't like that at all. You then have this quandary of why would I open up the sealed game and you devalue it because you can sell it for more on eBay? I don't like that at all. Okay. Put the code inside, make people open it up. And the last one I want to talk about is Sigil, which Sigil is which holding up here is a game from John Romero. Now, my copy is actually signed by John Romero there. Sigil is a game by John Romero. John Romero, if people haven't heard of him, he's the husband of legendary RPG designer Brenda Romero.
That's all he's known for. That's all he's known for. Yeah, that's right. John has done a 5th episode of Doom, which is Sigil there. I got the box version of it there. Nice. But because it came signed, it said he will cut a small slit along the top and carefully insert it back in. And my instructions were, rip the plastic off and throw it away. I don't want my games sealed. I think sealing them I understand why you do it, Neil, and I'm totally fine with that. I think it's a great idea. You can see in the shelves behind you there that they're all sealed. But I think a sealed game, I won't pay any extra for it. And I think it gives you this block about using it and unsealing it. Let them open them up, have a look inside the box.
Yeah.
If anyone were to say to me when they're at the cave, this game means so much to me, I used to play this as a kid, can I try it on the Amstrad CPC over there? I'd say, yeah, and I have in the past said, nice. Yeah, rip the plastic off, I can shrink wrap it. And just that experience of feeling like something is brand new from 30 years ago and ripping off the completely inauthentic seal, but just doing it, people absolutely love it. So I'm always happy to do that.
I can imagine.
To be clear, the reason why you have them sealed is so that people can pick them up off the shelf, look at the back, see them, feel the weight in their hand, touch it, and then put it back in the shelf without the boxes wearing out and getting stained and greasy and all the rest of it.
That just makes sense in the context of the exhibition. Yeah, that's a really cool way of doing it.
Ever since Dave visited with his big stainy, greasy hands, I was like, I'm going to have to seal these up.
Ruining
it's
it for
Pilot's fault.
everyone.
He gave me that great big pork pie. And,
he did, didn't he? Yeah, when Dave came to visit, he was given the biggest pork pie you've ever seen.
There were pork
pies.
pies.
Then he started touching all my stuff. Yeah. Pork pies have been banned now.
Nice. Damn it. That's why there was none when I came, obviously. Anyway, we better get into the actual story because we haven't even scratched the surface yet.
There's a story?
Yeah, there is a story, and it was dropped by Starcade 2084. And it's a link to a piece on Kotoka. Damn it, I always say that wrong. Kotoku.com by Luke Plunkett.
Are you having a stroke?
Yes, I'm having a stroke or a migraine. It tells the story of a collector who purchased some rare Nintendo items. And when I say rare, well, let's just say the collector's blog is called beforemario.com. And he's written a book of the same name, in fact, because much of Eric Voskuil's collection is exactly that. It's rare, it's very old, and they're Nintendo artifacts that predate the Italian plumber himself. So,
really?
Yes. So
he was right early in Nintendo stuff.
Well, let's go here then. So what did he buy? He bought playing cards. Not Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic the Gathering or any of those magic pretend collectibles.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Was that a boo-boo?
Yes, Yu-Gi-Oh. What did I say? Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, none of those pretend modern collectibles. I'm talking playing cards here. So hearts, spades, diamonds, clubs. You get the picture. Except these are Nintendo branded. So that's why they come before Mario, Dave. Just for you. All right. So these are playing cards, Nintendo branded playing cards from the 1950s. And not only that, but Eric has been looking long and hard for a set like this because they are printed in English. Nintendo, of course, being a Japanese company. And this is, long before they sort of exploded onto the global market as we know them now. And this particular set is a Kyoto souvenir playing card set, which features pictures of Kyoto on the cards. Of course, Kyoto being Nintendo's home. And yes, these were sealed old stock, as he puts it. So he doesn't call them new old stock, just sealed old stock. You need to look at the blog, and I really don't want to take traffic away from the blog, as it's an amazing journey of a 20-year search ending in a dream purchase. And no, he doesn't say how much he paid for these treasures, but we'll make sure we put the link to the blog in the show notes, as well as the story linked by Starcade. Just so you can have a look at it yourself. And please do take a look and take a read. So they're playing cards. They're Nintendo branded. They're sealed. They are very rare. And he's hunted them down for 20 years. And he's purchased 2 packs. And the problem is you need to see these wonderful pictures of Kyoto, right? And you need to see them on the original playing cards. Obviously, he can look up pictures of what they look like online, but he wants to look at what they actually look like on the cards. Neil?
Yeah, so I think the reason for the pictures on the cards is that it was an attempt at stimulating tourism post-war in the 1950s. So the images are lovely pictures of people, places, photographs on one side, and then just lovely hand-drawn art on the other side. They are really a lovely set of cards, and you can see the reason why this collector has been hunting them down. It's a lovely example of Nintendo playing cards, which, before Mario, they were very famous for their playing cards going way back to the start. Yeah,
they look gorgeous. So he's got 2 packs. He decides to open one of them, to crack open the cellophane sealed with a Japanese stamp since the 1950s. And again, go to the blog because it explains exactly why they were sealed with a stamp in that way. And he opens them only to find that the cards over all of that time have fused together into one solid block. Completely heartbreaking. Yeah. And of course, the sad irony is that, not that this hobby should ever be about money, but if they'd remained sealed, he wouldn't have known, nobody would have known, and the value wouldn't change at all. Regardless of the fact that they're not functional, they'd have still remained new old stock collectibles, and the value would have continued to climb.
Yeah,
exactly. It is a Schrodinger. Absolutely. So does this story... Go on.
He's got 2 decks, so effectively he's got the world's shortest game of Snap there, hasn't he?
And if they put the same card on the top of both, well, that's a very quick game as well. Absolutely. Oh, dear. Anyway, so, with that in mind, we've just had a discussion as to whether or not you should open new old stock stuff. Does this story change your opinion at all?
It makes me a little bit less likely to buy new old stock stuff because you can't tell what's inside it. If I'm buying a used game on eBay, then there's pictures of what's inside it so you can tell. But if it's a new old stock game, it might have been sitting in someone's damp garage for years, and it might be when you open it up, it's all moldy inside. I think there's a misconception, and this is a great way of blowing away that misconception. There's a misconception that if it's new old stock, then it's perfectly preserved inside. It clearly not true. Discs and tapes, when you're buying old blank media, discs and tapes, or media to reuse, new old stock is the way to go if you can, because any used ones I've bought, terrible success rates with those. I've bought hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of old 3.5 and 3-inch discs, and loads of them have been improperly stored. What happens is you don't use the old computer anymore, so you put them in a box and you put them up the loft or out in the garage, and then you get hot and cold cycles, damp, condensation forming, and they get wrecked. But if it's new old stock, it's less likely to be that way. They're less likely to go into garage, less likely to be damaged. But you can't open it up. And I can think of one example. Neil. Well, I don't know if he needed me to remind him of it, but Neil opened up a new old stock CD-ROM compilation, not a CD-ROM game because it was just used as a storage medium, for the Commodore 64. And if I think right, there was rust around the staples, and there was a little few points of mold growing on the manual. Is that right, Neil?
Yeah, I remember that. We opened that up to do an episode on that particular compilation. And yeah, there was rust on the staples. Now, that's not necessarily an indication that it wasn't new old stock, that it had been opened before, but it was an indication that moisture had got in there. And it, as Dave says, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to be pristine in there. So yeah, and that's also why I like, and I know Dave also likes to put silicone pouches into boxes if we do reseal them, or even if we don't reseal them. If you've got like a big pack of 1,000 silicone pouches, just shove one in the box for peace of mind to help with that.
That's a good idea.
And of course, we as collectors are trying to keep these things. There you go. Dave's holding up a big box of silica gel.
That's a really
silica.
good tip.
Sorry, I called it silicone gel, didn't I? Silica gel. Yeah, and us as collectors, we are aware of these problems and dangers, and we're, as Dave is sat in front of his shelves there, keeping things in what I'm guessing is a fairly dark room, or you at least keep the blind closed in there and the temperature's fairly consistent. It's not like we're keeping these things in our loft anymore, so hopefully we're doing our bit to preserve these things. Just going back to the block of cards, which is a really sad story, because I'd love to see all of those cards, but it does get me thinking to things like scanning of the Dead Sea Scrolls, scientists finding old documents on parchment paper and very carefully using whatever chemicals and processes they have to unfurl them and be able to read them. I'd love to see, we're talking about £1 million labs and scientists here, so they're hardly going to put their efforts into a pack of Nintendo cards, but maybe there's some kind of crossover where somebody might like a bit of PR and they can do this as a bit of a publicity stunt, and we might be able to separate the cards. But Eric is pretty adamant in his blog that that's it, that there's no saving them whatsoever. So I know he's had suggestions like freezing them, like steaming them and things like that, but he's not willing to give it a go. But hopefully if a lab maybe came forward, maybe someone out there listening works at such a facility, if someone could come forward, at least he's got 2 sets, and all is not completely lost if he maybe has a little go with one of the sets, even if it goes wrong. I don't know, but good luck to him.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck to him. There's buying new old stock to hold and resell as new old stock, but I think there's value in buying new old stock so that you get that experience of opening and using a brand new item, even though it's 30 years old or more. For me, the ones that always tempt me is every now and again a new old stock Spectrum Plus 2 James Bond pack appears on eBay or one of the groups, and they're usually quite reasonably priced. I'd love to get my hands on something like that and open it as if it was brand new. Same with the SCOM Commodore Amiga, the SCOM Amiga 1200, because obviously Commodore isn't in the name at that point. New old stock versions of that come up quite frequently, and it would be fantastic to unpack a A1200 as if it was brand new, because I never had that experience. Dave?
Not so much. I'm thinking the idea is now appealing to me. I'm not so much thinking about the idea of unwrapping it the first time. I'm thinking about the idea of getting a micro that isn't covered in someone else's DNA, because they're all grotty, and if you can remember how grotty it was, even after it's cleaned, it's still not as nice as it would have been if you'd been the only owner of it.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think that's where I got very fortunate with my Batman pack. It clearly was used very little and then put back in storage. I got very lucky with that. So, yeah, I'm very happy to own that. It was like reopening one from brand new. It was amazing. To own either in 2022 would be fantastic. But as for Eric and his playing cards, well, of course he's being bombarded, as you said, Neil, with messages of sympathy, but also advice on possible solutions. Perhaps the cards can be separated, or perhaps it is best to just minimize the damage, put them back in the box. And it still remains, I think, a very collectible item. But, for us as collectors, whatever we choose to do with our collections and our collectibles, I personally don't think there's a wrong answer on this. It's your stuff. Do whatever makes you happy.
Guys, have you ever been singing a song from your favourite opera and you got to the really high note and shattered all the glasses in your house?
All the time.
I'm sure you've seen it in films. You haven't seen it in films? I'm sure you've seen it in films and so on. And I did a bit of Googling, and it turns out it's kind of not a myth. You've seen it in films, everything shatters. If you get the frequency just right, and importantly, if you're loud enough, then it can be done. But it needs to be so loud that it's right at the limits of what a human voice can do, and it needs to be a thin lead crystal glass. I think it's been in Mythbusters. And that's caused by the resonant frequency, and that's the frequency at which the glass vibrates most efficiently, and the smashing of the glass happens when you get it to vibrate enough. And I thought resonant frequency was one of these myths that's faintly based in fact, and in reality doesn't happen, and I was wrong. This week's story was submitted by Starcade 2084, and it's talking about a problem with old laptops. And the problem started when a manufacturer reported a problem that happens when Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation plays on their laptops. Now, Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation is it's quite a unique song. It's maybe her, in my mind, it's her most favourite, the one that comes to mind. It's quite a kind of military themed song, and they thought originally it was related to the video, but it then crashed laptops from their competitors as well. So they went to Microsoft, and Microsoft worked out that it was the hard drives in them. And there was a particular sound in the song that did it. It caused the hard drive platter to vibrate enough that the machine would crash. So to fix it, they added a custom audio filter to remove that frequency from playback. And this is where I was quite interested in the legacy of it. Chen, who's the guy that wrote the blog, said the laptop manufacturer added a custom filter in the device audio system that could remove the resonant frequency during any audio playback. And directly quoting him, it says, "And I'm sure they put a digital version of a do not remove sticker on that audio filter. Though I'm worried that in the many years since the workaround was added, nobody remembers why it's there." And that got me thinking. I wonder if our current computers and software are littered with legacy fixes that are no longer relevant. Neil, I don't imagine in your career of hitting computers with a shoe, which, if anyone's not aware, that's what Neil did before he packed it all in and became a YouTuber. He would hit computers with a shoe. I wonder if you were in your career doing that. Did you deal with any resonant frequencies, or more seriously, did you deal with any old legacy stuff like that?
Oh dear, yes. The hitting a computer with a shoe appeared in a kind of corporate video we made once for internal use for a presentation. Yeah, it fixed it, though. It fixed it. I even had hair back then. That's how long ago it was.
Percussive maintenance.
Yeah, but hitting the high notes, I think I'm more likely to hit a brown note than a top note with my singing, Dave. No. So I shouldn't worry about that. But yeah, before I go on, Janet Jackson. Okay, Janet Jackson's music, she always seems to have been there, but nothing seems to have stuck. I had to go and listen to that Rhythm Nation as you were talking to just remind myself what it was. I really struggle to name Janet Jackson songs. It's just inoffensive. It's just there. Dave?
Yeah, I struggled to find a good pun for this, and I had to go to the Super Bowl slip that she had. But none of her lyrics are memorable. There's not a single. There's no Shimon. There's no Billie Jean stuff. There's nothing. Michael Jackson came out with so many memorable lyrics, and she didn't. I'm not saying the music's bad, but there you go.
The most memorable one I could come up with was the best things of life are free with Luther Vandross, I think it was. That's a pleasant enough song again, but yeah, there we go. Anyway, any Janet Jackson fans out there listening want to set us straight? Then go
angry
for it.
Angry comments, please.
Yes, angry comments defending Janet Jackson, please. But yeah, you're right. When it comes to legacy code, there must be all sorts of hardware fixes and code out there these days which are just not relevant anymore in modern computers, or code that's been removed. So, for example, code might still be in there to operate floppy disks, or dare I say it, CD drives. Yes, I still have a DVD drive in my PC, but I really can't remember the last time I used it. If I leave a DVD in there, it reminds me that I have a DVD drive because it sounds like a jet engine every time I turn the PC on and it spins up. Code for dial-up modems might still be in there for the one or two people who still want to send a fax via their computer. But generally, on the whole, I think operating systems are actually a lot better at removing this code when we're talking software. And when I say operating systems, I traditionally mean Microsoft Windows and its very unmodular nature, which has got better since around Server 2008 when they started trying to strip out the unneeded code and reduce attack vectors in doing that and making it more modular. I'm not saying Windows is Linux at its level of modularity. Calm down, please, Linux keyboard warriors. Don't attack me. But Windows is certainly better than it was. So there we go. We've upset Linux fans and we've upset Janet Jackson fans. If you're a fan of both Linux and Janet Jackson, you're going to be fuming right now.
Or the Amiga, because I started out having a go at
the Amiga. Well. Yeah.
You can't upset a Amiga fan because we're too chilled.
But for us guys, personally, I think actually it's a source of frustration when they remove this stuff because, when we're trying to recover old 5 1/4 inch floppy disks or test a 15-pin joystick, as we mentioned earlier, that's not happening in Windows 10. That's been removed long ago. So you need to fire up that 386 in the corner or get your Linux Live CD and add things to that or whatever. But it's not really a complaint. It's a bit like owning a Tesla and moaning that there isn't a manual choke still in there. It's not going to happen. I understand. And I agree with the reasoning behind it.
It's not the only resonant frequency problem that exists within the IT world. There's a video linked in the article that talks about how latency increases in data centers if people shout.
What? Yeah, there's actually a video of people shouting at walls of hard drives, and as they measure it, the read and write speed, isn't there? It's quite a funny video.
I wonder if Janet Jackson performing Rhythm Nation live in a data center would have the double dunt effect. Any thoughts, Chris?
Well, I'm wondering now if instead of back in the days of MIRC and WinNuke, not that I was ever part of this, but instead of sending people packets to crash their machine, should I have just been sending them music videos that hit the right resonant frequency to crash their hard drive? Interesting alternative attack on people that were annoying me in chats. Resonant frequency is a thing. I think Mythbusters did a few episodes on it and how it could even bring down bridges as an example, which is quite cool. But latency increasing if people are shouting, is that even really noticeable? That makes me wonder, does that include latency on, so you're talking about hard drive speeds, is it latency on the internet as well? So what I'm thinking about is when my boys are shouting at me saying that the internet's slowed down and it's affecting their multiplayer gaming, are they in fact the problem? It's because they're shouting that they're getting ping spikes. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how this works.
Do we know any other songs, Dave, that might have had the same effect, or do we know what the frequency was so we could find other songs, Because we have these retro expos that we go to filled with these old machines, and quite often there's a DJ playing at the end of the hall. So if he plays the wrong song, could he bring down every retro PC in the expo?
The right song, then. Maybe we could get a myth going about the songs we hate hearing and stop it happening and do the world a favour. I know there was a DJ in Belfast for the other night. Any songs in particular that you would like to be banned just because of the damage they cause?
Oh, no. By the time I finished the wedding, the DJs had finished in town. There was a big event in Belfast with Disclosure and Eric Prydz and all these DJs playing. But I didn't hear any of that. That didn't bother me. What did make me laugh was the youth spilled out into the town at about midnight as I was getting back to the hotel. And my God, it was like some kind of cosplaying for 90s raves where everything was a bit off. They looked at pictures of 90s ravers and just sort of amped it up. But that's, I seem to remember when we were in the 90s, there was this whole 60s fashion thing came back around again, and everyone was, looking like bad versions of the 60s. So that did make me chuckle. But yeah, I love Chris's idea about spreading this as a kind of virus. If they'd known this back in the day, surely they would have put a version of Janet Jackson or some other songs with this frequency on Napster, and that would have just caused chaos. That would have killed Napster. If people's laptops were suddenly imploding, that would have been the end of it.
They used to do that with Napster. They used to, I'm told, I've never used it. I'm told that sometimes you would go to download whatever song was top of the hit parade, and
the hit parade,
and it would be a fake. It would be that the opening line just repeated and repeated and repeated. And I don't know if record companies did that, or I don't know if it was people just looking for the clout by getting a file shared. I don't know, but there was lots.
That's true. Yeah,
maybe. That if they'd known about this resonant frequency, you could be listening to a song, you could be listening to whatever it was you downloaded, it would sound just perfect, but it would have this resonant frequency in there, and your computer would keep crashing.
Wow. Yeah, or some, use it for espionage or something like that. But
a new version of Rickrolling.
That's true. Well, yeah, what you said was true, actually, Dave. I do remember in the very early days of Napster, it was just brilliant. It was just brilliant. You could get any song you wanted. I had a decent connection at the time. I could get it really quickly. And then these things started to sneak in. The looping audio was definitely one. And that followed into torrents as well. You might download a torrent, especially when there was a big new album release. It would appear on BitTorrent. Everyone would download it, and it was just looping songs. Yeah, that was definitely a thing. I remember it well, allegedly.
So have a look at the link there, have a read at the blog, and have a look at the videos linked. It is quite interesting.
Time now for our community question of the week. We will read out your answers from last week's question. And that question was, after the sad passing of Oliver Frey, we recalled some of his magazine covers that stood out to us. We asked, what are your favourite pieces of his work? Have any of those old Crash, Zap 64 or Amtix covers stuck in your mind since you were young? Were you a fan of his comic book work? If you can drop a link to the image, that would be really helpful. So yeah, we asked you to link to any images you referenced. So if you head over to our subreddit, you can read along while we read these out and click on the links to see the images. So the first answer, we've got some quite long answers today. So people have given these a lot of consideration. And the first one is from Ben Wawa. And he starts by saying, I'm going to cheat a bit this week and not include art by Oliver Frey. Do I just stop there? Let's give him a chance. Let's read on.
Maybe he's going to come back to Oliver Frey in it.
Maybe. Okay, so he says, lately I've been on a retro kick. I've got myself a C64 Maxi, Spectrum NGO, that's the Spectrum Next clone, to satiate my retro needs. I really wanted a nice background wallpaper to show the fight between the Spectrum and the C64, and I couldn't find anything online that I liked, so I decided to ask a student of mine to make something for me. They say, I'm an English teacher in Thailand. Oh, we got a listener in Thailand. That's nice. Being a fan of Oliver Frey's work, I asked her to use that as some inspiration and gave her a link to the website you guys mentioned on the show. She really liked the work and agreed to take on the commission. My original idea was to have two computers smashing together in an explosion, but she asked me to let her do things her own way. Obviously, wanting to let her have her own creativity, I let her do what she wanted, and this is what she came up with. I haven't clicked on this yet, so I'm going to click on it now. Oh, that's interesting. So they haven't gone for the obvious two computers smashing into each other. It's like a Jedi fight. It's almost like Darth Vader or, I don't know. How would you describe these characters? They're almost a Mortal Kombat feel to one of them with a mask on there. Or a, not Blade Runner, what was the Highlander? A Highlander feel with lightsabers. But they've got accented belts and things about their person that show the ZX Spectrum rainbow and the Commodore 64 colors. Definite Oliver Frey feeling inspiration behind that picture, I think. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm going to forgive Ben Wawa because he has brought it back to Oliver Frey. But I noted that the colours they've chosen for the two fighters is quite appropriate. The C-64 fighter and the Spectrum fighter. The Spectrum fighter is grey, kind of like a grey Spectrum Plus 2. And the C-64 is brown, like the entire C-64 palette.
There you go. Add that to the list of people you're offending this week, Dave. C-64 owners. But yeah, definite Oliver Frey inspiration behind that. He goes on to say, I think it's a great picture and I like the way she's drawn inspiration from Oliver Frey and Star Wars. It's easily one of the best 25. Is that all you've spent? £25? Give her a tip, surely. It's easily the best £25 I've ever spent. I shared it on a couple of Spectrum Facebook pages and it caused a bit of a stir. As while I saw the Sith as the Spectrum, most of them saw the Jedi as the Spectrum. Oh no, he's upsetting people over on Facebook. Although we know how easy it is to upset people on Facebook.
That's
anyway,
the point of Facebook.
Anyway, I wanted to share it with all of you because I think it's nice to know that while Oliver Frey has passed, his work will continue to inspire younger artists in what they do. That's brilliant. That's probably one of my favorite answers from all the questions of the week we've had over the course of the show. That's fantastic. Who's reading the next answer?
I will. Okay. If that's all right with you, Chris.
That's fine with me, Dave.
Paul, also known as Hermsky, says there are two covers for Lemmings, one for Crash and another for Sega Force. So just a quick recap of what we said last week. Quite often, Oliver Frey's artwork for these magazines would be about a game, but it wouldn't be the game artwork. It would be his interpretation of it. And as I think it was Neil quite rightly said last week, it was quite often better than the original game artwork. Both were amazing and bold, pushing the boundaries of what could be displayed on the shelf. No other magazines dared to be so bold. The Crash cover, you could see the fear in the Lemming's eyes as he noticed what lies ahead with the blood spatter at the bottom of the ravine. And I'm going to click on it now, and thankfully, Chris Wilkins from Fusion Retro has kindly given us permission to put these images on, so I'm sure Duncan can put it on there. And yeah, it's a close-up of most of a Lemming's face. He looks absolutely petrified. That's very clever.
He looks haunted. That is the most haunted Lemming I've ever seen. He's seen things. Yeah.
The other favourite of mine, sorry.
I've just said it, disturbing.
Yeah. But that was all the point of Oliver Frey's was that he went a bit beyond the normal kind of stuff.
It evokes an emotional reaction, doesn't it? Which is fantastic art. Yeah.
The other favourite of mine was the Zap leaderboard cover. They were commissioned to run a cover for US Gold, but another magazine called them out as a fluffy lollipop magazine. Yeah, that's the toxic masculinity of those days.
We did talk about this cover, but I didn't know the backstory behind it, so that's interesting to hear. Yeah.
Ollie could not resist and hit back with his skills. US Gold loved it. So this is the one that Neil talked about, where it is a rather attractive blonde lady suggestively licking an ice pole with three presumably golfers in the background.
Three young lads, who
are also giving a suck to a suggestive-looking pole, and reflected in her enormous sunglasses is a golfer hitting a shot with his club in the air and the flag in the distance. So that, giving it the context that we didn't know about, has a dimension to it. So that's him obviously saying, well, we can be edgy if we want. If you want to see more examples, I put this together the other day, and what Paul has linked is a video from himself. Paul does make videos, and he's linked a 16-minute video celebrating his iconic fantasy artwork for magazines like Crash, Zap, and Antics.
I didn't actually know that Paul had a YouTube channel. I'm sorry, Paul. I've just subscribed to you, and his YouTube channel is called Back to 8-Bit with Hermsky. So perhaps Duncan can put a link in the show notes. He has 407 subscribers. Come on, gang. Let's see Paul get up to 500 subscribers. Let's go and give him a big
now.
This Week in Retro hug and get those subs up. And yeah, he's put a 15-minute video out there where he's talking about his favorite covers and showing lots of nice examples of them. So well worth a look.
I'm not going to subscribe to him because I'm already subscribed because I don't live in the dark.
I've just subbed
Chris.
well.
Great. So there you go. Two more subs. Chris, do you want to read out we've got the third answer is from Tej, who may well be the same Tej who came to visit the cave the other week. So thank you for coming to visit.
Nice.
Good to see you on the subreddit.
Tej Pandemonium. Nice, cool. So they say
maybe someone completely different, but it may be the same Tej.
But their response says, I always enjoyed the Christmas specials cover art. A nice break from the more movie poster style of other monthly covers. It was a double issue, which meant it had to last longer. I would read them over and over to keep that warm Xmas glow going. Of course, the competitions were a huge array of wondrous shiny prizes, were also very attractive. And they basically linked to 4 different covers. So I'll just have a quick look at those. Christmas special, which is this from number 48, January 1988, which is some Pac-Man running up and down a champagne bottle. We got Crash Christmas special. Can't see a date on that one because the contrast is terrible. No reflection on Oliver
Santa
Frey.
Santa giving out parcels to aliens on one of them. There's one, I think it's the third link if you click on it. It's like a black and white image with an
That's the one I'm
octopus
looking
serving
at.
up the turkey. Now, on the right-hand side, there's a guy pulling down his Father Christmas beard, on elasticated beard. Who is that? Does anyone know who that face is? Looks familiar, but I don't know who that is. It's got to be someone famous from the year.
Answers in the comments.
Yeah,
that is
possibly.
Crash issue. I think that's number 36. I think that's what it says. As you say, the contrast makes it hard to see.
It's hard, isn't it? Yeah. It wouldn't pass accessibility standards.
36, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very nice black and white image. What are the other two? So we've got like a, what's that? That's from number 24, 1985-86. Santa holding something up to a sort of alien Grinch-like character. That's how I could best describe that one, with the UFO in the background.
That's great. The Christmas edition of your favorite computer magazine was always really special because the magazines would always come out a month before for that month. So you'd get your Christmas one, November, wouldn't you? So you wouldn't have quite finished school yet. And, you'd be thinking ahead to Christmas. You'd be looking at the games you might want for Christmas. And there was all that excitement about school ending, getting 2 weeks off or however much time you got off. And that would be a well-thumbed issue of your favorite computer magazine for sure. In the height of the Amiga format years, wow, there must have been 400 or 500 pages in some of their Christmas editions. They did put out some huge magazines at Christmas time. Good value for money. So on to our community question of the week for this week. And I think it should probably be about our discussion on sealed games. Let's hear your thoughts. So do you own anything sealed? How do you feel about opening things that are sealed? Any specific questions we want to ask here? Is it just a general, should you open sealed games?
Should sealed games be opened? Yeah.
Should sealed games or hardware, it can be anything, computers, games, hardware. Should sealed retro, there we go, we found the question. Should sealed retro, I feel like James O'Brien at this point. I'm sort of thinking out loud. That's the question. Yes, how do you feel, everyone? Should sealed retro be opened? That's it. That's the question.
Nice.
Should sealed retro be opened? Head over to reddit.com/r/This Week in Retro. Feel free to elaborate. Don't just give us a bunch of yes or no answers. Talk about your own experiences. Have you been tussling with the idea of opening something that you have that's sealed? Have you opened something that's sealed? Did you find everything fused together like in that box of cards? And if you did, share your elation or disappointment with the experience. We'd love to hear all about it. Maybe you've made a video like Hermsky did, and you'd like to include a link to your own video. Do let us know. As always, gentlemen, thank you for chatting today. Thank you for listening or watching if you're over on YouTube. Give us a sub if you're not already subbed to the show. Take care and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
He's waving.
This Week in Retro was presented by Neil from RMC The Cave, Chris from 005 AGIMA, and Dave. It was produced by me, Duncan Styles. The podcast version of the show is available through your favourite podcaster, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and the video version is available on the This Week in Retro YouTube channel.
Join our community subreddit at r/thisweekinretro to suggest and vote on the stories we cover on the show. If you watch This Week in Retro on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe to help us reach new viewers.
If you enjoy our show and would like to support it, then please check out the link to our Patreon page in the show notes or description. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for more up-to-date news for out-of-date tech.